Hey everyone, so this week we're going to be going over some SQL within our Phpmotors website. And so first off, the first thing that we want to do is we created a clients database, which we can see is currently empty right now. And what we're going to do first is populate this within our database. So we're going to use SQL. And then what we want to do is, so we want to insert clients. So this means that we're going to insert into our database of clients, this one that's currently right there. We set all of our columns with the first name, last name, email, password, and comment. And then what we want to do is use the values to be able to pass those values within our table or our database. And you'll notice that, so Tony is going to be the first name, Stark is going to be the last name, so it's all index based. And so we're going to throw this into the database here. So we'll hit go. One row inserted, so we'll come back to the clients, and you'll notice everything is all in here now. So we have client ID 1, we have Tony, Stark, email, password. He's currently the client level 1, and his comment of being the real Iron Man. Okay, so the next thing that we want to do is this client level right here, we want to change that to a 3. And so we'll come back to here. And the way that we do that is we want to use an update. And so what an update does is it kind of comes through and looks at the database. So it's kind of like a select. We want to choose what database that we're going to go into. So in this case, we're going to go into the clients. And then the set is kind of like a modify function. And what set means is, so for this client level, what we want to do, we want to set that to equals the number 3. So we want to set the client level to number 3. And then we used a where to kind of tell the program, okay, where are we going to be looking for this? And currently this is in the client ID equals 1. But let's check that real fast. So come back here in here to client. Okay, so our client ID, yes, that is correct. So this is currently the number 1. So we'll come back, and then looks like we lost it. So we'll paste that back in. So we're going to be looking for the client ID 1. Let's go ahead and give that a go. So it says 1 row has been affected. So let's come back here and check it out. Okay, so everything's still the same. We got the 1, the Tony, the Stark, the email, password, and now we got our client level to be the number 3, which is perfect. Okay, so now the next thing that we want to do is we're going to be focusing on the inventory database. So in here, we have the Hummer, this guy right here, and we kind of want to change the text in the description here. So if you come down, you'll see that it says small interiors right there. And so knowing Hummer, they typically have large interiors. So let's go ahead and change that. So we'll go back up to our SQL here. And what we want to do is enter this in. Okay, so now, again, we're doing an update, and the update is going to look at the database inventory, so it'll be going into here looking for it. And then we're going to set the inventory description. And so the inventory description, we're going to use an equal replace, which will again look at this inventory description. And what it'll do is go down that column, and it'll look for this specifically. And so we'll enter in the small interior, which is the parameter that it'll look for. And then the second parameter that we enter in is spacious interior. So this is going to be what we're going to replace the small interior with. And then we set our where to our inventory ID, which equals 12. So that's kind of our key. And that makes sure that we don't accidentally capture something else and then change their small interior description to a spacious interior if it doesn't need to be. Okay, so let's go ahead and run that. Looks like 1 row has been affected. So let's go back into inventory real fast, and then back to the Hummer. Let's look at this. Okay, see if it went through. All right, so spacious interiors. So you can see that has now been updated. Okay. So now the next thing we want to do is we're actually going to use an inner join, and we want to be able to join the classification ID and kind of specify, okay, which ones of these are SUVs. And you'll notice that in the classification here, the SUV, you have a classification ID number 1 for SUV. Come back into inventory really fast. You got a classification number 1. And so just quickly looking at this, you can see it looks like it's numerical order from top to bottom. And you got 1, 2, 3, 4. So it should change 4 into having that SUV stated as we do this merge here. Okay, so now let's go back to our SQL. And we'll change this to what we have here. So what we want to do is select the inventory model. So what this kind of captures is we're going into the database of inventory, and then we're going to select the column of inventory model. And then same thing with the car classification. So we're going to go into the database of the car classification, and then we're going to do the classification name. So it's going to be kind of looking at those two different portions of it, and then that's what we'll want to merge it. And then from is kind of like we're looking at this specific location as well. So car classification, that's the database here. We're going to find the SUV, and in the inner join, we're going to inner join with that one the inventory database. And what are we going to join it on? We're going to join it on the inventory classification ID with the car classification ID. And so what all that'll do is it'll basically kind of compare the two and then line them up and match them so that it'll be line by line for how we want to merge and to put those two together. And then where do we want to do this? Okay, so this is going to be within the car classification name, and we want it to equal the SUV. And so what that'll do is just basically take the car classification, the classification ID, and we'll make it so the name says SUV. So let's go ahead and do that real fast. So you'll notice that here within the bottom. So showing the rows. So we did the Wrangler, the machine, the Escalade, and the surveillance van. So those are all the ones that we currently captured, and we just merged it, and now the classification name, instead of being a number or any other thing that we have, it's going to tell us the name of it. So that's pretty cool. Okay, so now the next thing that we want to do is the Wrangler. Okay, so the Wrangler, what we want to do is show an example of a delete function here. So let's go back into our SQL here, and then what we want to do is use the delete. And so what we're going to do is to delete from. And again, anytime you're going into this, the first thing that it typically wants is your database is where it's going into. So we're going to have it go into and delete something from our inventory database. And then we're going to specify exactly where we want this to delete from. And what we're going to look at is the inventory model, which equals the Wrangler. Okay, now one thing actually coming up here, actually I think I might actually change this real fast. So we got our Wrangler right here, and we got our inventory ID, and this is the key that we're kind of using, and so we know that there's no other one that is going to have the inventory ID as number 1 because they're all individual. The bad side is if we did the Wrangler, there could be a potential within our database that we might have another one that's specified as Wrangler. If that happens, there's the chance that we might delete both of them at the same time, which we don't want. So let's go ahead and capture this. So what we want to do is the inventory ID as 1. Okay, so let's go back. What I'm going to do is actually change this to ID. Let's do it for the number 1. Okay. So let's check out and see if that works. Do we really want to delete it? Yep, we do. Okay, so it looks like it's been affected, 1 row. So let's go ahead and check that out. Oh, there we go. So you notice that at the very top, the Wrangler was the one that was specified as the number 1, and it was the very first one. And looks like that is now gone. Okay, so that's exactly what we wanted. Alright, so the next thing that we want to do is you'll notice in the inventory images, thumbnails, it can't be matched up for the Phpmotors website because we need to have that folder within the first part of it so it'll display the images properly within our website. And so let's do that using SQL. Let's go back into the SQL option here. Okay, and what we are going to do is use a concat to be able to do this. Alright, so again what we want to do is, so that it already has the information and data there, we want to update it. And so it's going to go into the inventory, we're going to set, so we're going to modify the image equals, we're going to use a concat here now, and you can either do both sides, but since we want the Phpmotors within the first part of the image so it goes into the correct folders and displays that image, we're going to have that portion of it on the front, and then you'll have your image, your inventory image, which it'll put the rest of the content right here. And then same thing with the thumbnail, we'll do the concat and then have it on the front, and then check it out here. Okay, go, localhost, do you really want to execute? Yes, I do. Okay, so now let's go back into inventory real fast, and you'll notice, there we go. So our inventory image, inventory thumbnail, it now has the Phpmotors within the first portion of that. So now once we go and set that up within our HTML, it'll display correctly because now it's in the correct folders. Okay, so the next thing that we want to do here is let's go to the local host, and we want to check out specifically our library and connections.php. Let's see. Did I spell that right? Alright, so I think I actually need the Phpmotors because that's one of the folders. We'll do the library and then connections. Okay, so that should pinpoint it to where that's located. Okay, so now you'll notice that this is currently working. So what happens here is this is our server database that is trying to open up, which comes up with a blank screen as we don't have anything really tied to it right now. So what I will do, so you'll notice here within my Visual Studio Code here, so we have our connections PHP. Okay, so what I want to do, I'm just going to delete this right here. So what that'll cause an error, and you can kind of see what happens when we do that. So once we cause an error, all of a sudden we have this this view, which is in my view folder, 500.php, and this will come up just to basically tell you, hey, your server is having an error, and this is something that'll pop up anytime that there's issues. So it looks like that it is working correctly, so I'll go ahead and fix that again. Okay, and then if we go back to, again, the library, connections.php, and there we go. So it's got the blank screen again. It's trying to open up what we wanted it to open up, but there's currently nothing tied to it at the moment. So, and then that is pretty much it for the enhancement number 2 for this week. And thanks for watching, guys.